and she tried to blame it on the dog.
There is no longer a federal constitutional right to an abortion.
Hey everybody, welcome to Bryant and Baden, Justice Served. This is the case against Michelle Troconis relating to the death of Jennifer Dulos. So as we open up the classroom here, let's use some flashcards just to help people get a little back up to speed on where we are. Obviously, Fotis Dulos, you remember him.
Well, let's start with the fact that he had his own death penalty. Okay, in Connecticut there wouldn't be a death penalty. He had his own death penalty because he was accused of killing his wife Jennifer Dulos. She disappeared on May 24th, 2019 in Connecticut. Actually, it's quite close to you, Michael.
This is the house. We're in New Canaan, Connecticut, and it was on May 24th, 2019 that Jennifer Dulos loaded up the 5 kids, put them in the SUV, took them to a nearby school, and then returned. It was about 8:05 that morning. Those facts are not in dispute, but what happened after that, very unclear. Now, authorities say Fotis Dulos was hiding out in the garage, which is on the right side of the house as we look at it here behind me, and he was waiting for Jennifer to return, and when she did, he attacked her. Did he kill her in that garage? Unclear. Did he physically injure her in that garage? Unclear. We do know there was blood found in the garage, and there were efforts to clean up that blood, also found in the garage. The question now for prosecutors, in the context of a conspiracy case, is proving that Michelle Troconis was part of a common scheme or plan with at least one other person, and that she did something in furtherance of that common scheme or plan. By the way, this house went on the market about 6 months after Jennifer disappeared. According to county records, it is still owned by the same LLC that owned it back then, but they have changed the address. It no longer has the same street address as it did back in 2019, in an effort to kind of remove some of the taint from the alleged crimes that took place in this house.
Okay, so, and you may have noticed I'm using pink for the women's names and blue for the men's. I'm
He's
sure
sexist.
That's sexist, I'm sure.
You are.
So, obviously,
But actually, it's very Barbie also, and I love Barbie.
Hey, I only got about 20 minutes into that movie. I had to pull the plug, sorry. Anyway,
oh my gosh, we have to talk.
Yeah. So, anyway.
Wait a second.
Troconis.
You know Helen Mirren, my doppelganger,
she played
was
you in
the
movie.
narrator.
She was the narrator, right? I know.
Yes,
I'll give you that. That was the best part of the movie. So, this is Michelle Troconis' trial. And there was this big, custody battle. That's really what spawned the alleged crime, was this 2-year-long custody battle between Jennifer Dulos and Fotis Dulos. So this is the woman in question at the time, and now she's on the hot seat because obviously Fotis Dulos no longer stand trial since he's offed himself. So she's looking at conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with evidence. Those are the charges. She could go to prison for life. And it's been 4 years since this disappearance.
Right.
COVID swooped in, slowed things down. Now things are kind of back up to speed. I think it's interesting. The attorney for Michelle Troconis, John Schoenhorn, he wanted a change of venue. He said, there's nobody in this area that's not going to be aware of this case, not going to know and have feelings about this case. The judge, in denying it, in part said, we had COVID. COVID apparently was a memory eraser. And because that created this 4-year gap, or at least part of it, that's not going to be a problem for the jury. So they've already got the jury selected, and they've just been cooling their heels, waiting to get going for the trial, the first part of January. Okay, let me go to a blue card. Okay, very important blue card. Another one. Kent Mulvaney. This guy is the former longtime friend and attorney of Fotis Dulos, and oh, by the way, the only other remaining defendant in the case. This guy's charged with the same thing that Troconis is charged with, the tampering with evidence, the conspiracy to commit murder. And this is key. He's expected to testify against Michelle Troconis in this trial. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's some weird stuff with that, because during the suppression hearing that the attorneys for Michelle Troconis made, there were some issues about this guy, because we learned that Fotis Dulos apparently met with Kent Mulvaney's wife in an attempt to try to mend their marriage just a few days before Jennifer disappeared. Now, that is a weird setup, isn't it? I don't know what it means, but it's weird, and it's going to give a lot of cross-examination fodder.
Yep, and we're going to learn a whole lot more about that relationship and what kind of deal, if any, he may get out of this.
They're all getting deals, right?
They're all getting deals. And that's what makes Michelle Troconis' folks so upset. Her parents are very upset because, among other things, there's this other guy. Ready for another name?
Yep.
Okay. This is Paul Gowini. This guy is a former employee of Fotis Dulos, and he's gotten an immunity deal from the former prosecutor, not the current prosecutor, but the former prosecutor. They're honoring it. Apparently, the deal was struck in 2019, and soon after the crimes. And so he's going to be testifying, and he's going to dump on Michelle. How could he not? He's got immunity.
There's no way. Right.
So
and of course, the cross-examination, Michael,
of course,
from a defense attorney is like, so when did you find when he got up there and swore to God on the Bible, and did you find it when the jail cell actually closed behind you the first time you may have been arrested, or you were thinking about it? Oh, come on.
Yeah, well, that's always the fun part of the cross of a snitch, as it were. But
right.
The parents of the defendant Troconis, they're just upset because why is this deal being given to this guy, and they're leaving Michelle to twist in the wind. So they're very upset about it.
The police, law enforcement must think that Michelle knows where the body is. I think that's where this comes down to, because why else would they be giving everyone else
a deal? But don't you think she would
give
that info up if it meant a better deal for her?
No, because right now she has a chance of it not guilty. She was in the car. She was in the truck when the 3 bags were unloaded that contained a lot of Jennifer Dulos stuff along the way. Right? That's something against her. But the search warrant had it that there were 30 stops. She was involved in 30 stops of getting rid of evidence. So the police may have some problems, and the attorneys may say, "Hey, look, why should we take it? Why should we plead guilty to anything if we didn't kill Jennifer Dulos? Maybe we knew the husband was planning it, but we just sat there. We don't speak English that well. And by the way, I Michelle Troconis, why would I want his kids? Why would I want his and her kids? Remember, it's the custody battle that started all this.
That's certainly going to be a conversation. Yeah, was she fighting for the kids? I don't know. I'm not so sure that was what was going on here. So when we get to this trial, obviously the evidence that's allowed is key, and there's always pretrial motions. Some of the stuff that will be allowed in and some of the stuff that won't be allowed in. Let's talk about that. Let's first talk about the phone. They had a search warrant. They got no search warrant. They took her cell phone saying there were exigent circumstances. That wasn't the problem, Linda, because the physical phone was not the big deal. It was what they were diving into to get. So the court said, no exigent circumstances, no search warrant. Whatever you got from that phone is out.
Right. And I'm not sure that precludes them to going back to the judge and maybe an appellate court, take an interlocutory appeal. And I don't know whether the prosecution's thinking about this, to get the actual records, because the records of the phone calls, well, they can still get that because that's separate from getting the phone. I mean, you're thinking about, you want this, right? You want to see all my voicemails. You want to hear
I don't think I could handle that. I don't think I can. No.
No one can handle that.
Way too much information. But I think you're right. I think they're talking about, maybe there's some voice recordings, other things that are better than. I mean, you go to the custodian of records for the phone company and you go, on this day this call was made to this number. Boom. This day. It's information they can get and probably will be provided. I think there was more on that phone, and it's out. So let's talk about the other stuff that the prosecution won on in these pretrial motions.
Okay.
There were a number of police interviews.
I can do whatever you want, but I didn't do it.
And so the defense was saying, hey, number one, Spanish is her primary language, and she didn't have a translator. Number two, they used coercive tactics.
They strip-searched her.
And they
took
lied
her in
to
and
her.
stripped her, sir. I mean, think about it. She goes in and she's arrested and she doesn't understand English as well as a first language. Be interesting to see if she has a translator on the bench, right?
Exactly.
The trial
and I'm sure that was a factor for the court when it decided ultimately, she wasn't deprived her rights because she does speak English almost as a primary language. You can say she's Spanish and has a native Spanish language component, but she wasn't deprived of any rights by not having an interpreter. So all of that stuff's coming in. All of those police interviews, they're coming in.
Oh, this is going to be a wild trial.
It is.